The split squat helps you build single leg strength and stability. And it's really great because there's kind of two things it accomplishes. So one, it actually helps build your strength for two-legged movements like a squat, because you're strengthening one leg, and you can also help balance out asymmetrical differences where, if one leg is weaker than the other, your double leg squat's gonna be weaker, right, because one's not able to do as much as the other one. So it can help you to lift more weight and get stronger for those double leg movements. The other thing is, this is a wonderful movement for transitioning to truly single leg movements like a lunge, something where the other leg is coming completely off the ground and you're supporting all of your weight on one leg. This helps transition you over to that. And single leg exercises are kind of more functional than double leg exercises, because if you think about it, most of the things that we do in life involve one limb being in front of the other or doing something that's different than the other limb, right? So as far as like things I can think of as examples, this particular movement, the split squat, this will help you to like kneel down and pick things off the ground and be able to lift yourself back up. It helps you get off of the ground without using like excessive use of your hands, things like that. So you can see how functional that is. Whereas with double leg movements like the squat, it's still very great to do, but it's more of like a strength builder. So it just builds the muscle in your legs, whereas those single leg exercises are the things that help you do functional things in life more easily. So feet width. So what we're talking about right now is how far apart your feet are like this before you then take a step back or a step forward, okay? It's variable, what feels comfortable for you. What you kind of want to decide it on is, one, you want to feel nice and stable. Two, you want to be able to keep your hips squared to the front once you take your leg back. So bringing your foot more in line with your front foot or farther out could affect your hips rotating back, just because your leg's not long enough or you don't have enough flexibility. And then as well, if you go too wide, it's going to be more challenging for your glute medius. This is your glute muscle on this side, to keep your hips level when you go down. So maybe at the top your hips are level, but what happens is when you squat down, there's a tendency for this hip to drop like that. I'm going to exaggerate it, and that's this muscle that needs to work. So if your stance is like too wide, this muscle will have to work a lot harder, and you just may not be ready for that yet. As a starting place, I would say that just kind of directly under your legs for feet placement. Do you see how mine are like that? So if I do it a little wider, like hip width, for me, it's a bit wide for my current glute medius strength. I feel like it's challenging to keep my hips level. What I like to do is get my phone out and turn my camera on and actually check, like when I go down, like what my hips are doing, and that helps me decide. Going narrower is okay for me too, but I do find I have to work at not rotating my pelvis back as I go down. So just kind of play with it and find what's good for you, okay? So, but like I said, a good starting position is probably just kind of legs, feet right under your legs as like a normal standing position. So that's your feet placement. I'm gonna go to the side now. What you're gonna do to get ready to be able to go down, you either take a step forward or back. So personally, I like doing a leg back, and it's just your toes that will be, let me show you this side. It's just your toes. Your heel will be totally off the ground. As far as how far back you step or how far forward, so here's stepping forward. So here I am here, and then I step forward. Your torso should be in line with your front leg. That's kind of the main factor as far as how far behind you one leg is, while still keeping your hips squared. And as if you're standing, then one leg just goes back. Does that make sense? I wanted to explain it only because my understanding of a split squat was very different before I went over this with the physical therapist. And you can use it as a version. We'll talk about it later. I used to think a split squat was more where your torso was in between both legs and you had a much, bigger stride here. And that's not what it is. This should be here, okay? And that's what's gonna get you kind of working more in a single leg position where you're putting a lot of load on that one leg, okay? So You may find that how far back your leg goes is not that far. It has to do with all sorts of factors, but again, just like I said, just make sure that whatever you do, your torso's over the front leg and your hips are squared. There's really only so far you can go back and still do those two things. So those should be the two deciding factors. For me, it's not very far. I measured it and I think it was like 9 to 12 inches. The physical therapist said I think she was able to do more, like 17 inches. Obviously, your leg length, things like that would really affect it, and also the flexibility of your hip flexors. All right, I'm going off on a tangent with that, but anyhow, so here we are, body all in line, one leg back, hips square to the front. Your torso just stays in neutral, nice and tall, chest up. Gently engage your core, so we're not doing a hard gripping with our core, but if you take a breath and then just a quick breath out, that's kind of about how much engagement you want to keep in your core. If you were holding weights, you would just, there's different ways to do it. You could hold them on your shoulders or by your sides, just like this. We'll go over that in a little bit. Neck neutral as well, just staring forward. Last thing I want to say to get into position here, sorry, I've kind of like gone over this a long time, but it took me quite a while to learn the proper positioning, so I just want to make sure you get all the details that were like so confusing to me at first. But the idea here is that you want about 70% of your weight to be over the front leg. So your back leg will be working a little bit to take a little bit of the weight off and to stabilize you, but the majority of the work is being done by your front leg. Now, if you're not strong enough to do that yet, it's okay to put a little more weight on the back leg, but the idea is definitely to put as much as you can on that front leg, okay? All right, we are going to actually do the split squat now, but before we do, just 4 last pointers. While you're doing the movement, here's the 4 kind of most important things that I think that are important. 1, keeping your hips level. We'll go over that. 2, the knee can travel past the toes. 3, 70% or so of your weight should be over the front leg. Just that's where the bulk of the weight should be. And the 4th thing is to have a slow descent, okay? So we're ready now. So let's get into position with everything we just went over. I'll do it from the side here. So torso over the front leg, right? Toes there in the back, just kind of stabilizing you. What you're gonna do is you're going to hinge slightly at the hips. So not a ton, we're not bending way over, but we're gonna slightly hinge at the hips, and we're gonna come kind of like straight down, our knees bending, our hips bending till we touch. And then we're gonna push through the front leg back to standing to a neutral hip. So you don't want to finish with a flexed, like with a crease in your hip. You want to finish with a fully straightened leg like this, okay? So let me do it a couple more times. So down, slight hinge at the torso, press back up through the front leg to straight at the top, no crease at the hip. Down, and then up. You can adjust your positioning with the width of your feet or how far back you are, depending on how it's feeling as you do it, okay? So if there's something not feeling right, let me show you from the front. So remember, as far as how far you step back, you wanna make sure that your hip's not rotating back, either while you're in position or as you go down. And as you, let's see, I gotta show you guys something here. Can you see this line? So the idea is this, your hips should stay level as you go up and down. I have a good leg and a bad leg, and you might too. So this is my good leg, and I'm gonna demonstrate in a minute my bad leg to show you what happens. Let me just do a few more from the front, and then we'll talk a little more, okay? Whoa! Okay, so what I wanted to show you, which is, this has been such a struggle for me, you guys, so that's why I want to show it to you, because you might need to work on it too. As I mentioned, I have a good leg and bad leg. This is my good leg. So when you go down, one of the most important things with the movement, really with any lunge, any type of movement like this, is to keep your hips level. So my hips are here, of course, but this is where my pants line is. So you can kind of watch this, like watch the line of my pants. And the idea is, as you go down and up, the back leg shouldn't let the hip drop. And that is a part of using your glute medius, this side glute, to keep that engaged and pull that in so that this hip stays level. So let me show it to you level. Just watch my pants line here. It should be looking level. Is it looking level? Okay, good. All right, so it's good to have a videographer for moments like this. All right, so now, I know we're gonna cover this in the avoids, but this is actually really important to go over. So now I'm gonna show you my bad leg, and I'm not gonna try too hard. And I want you to see what happens to this side, okay? You're gonna see this side drop as I go down, okay? Do you see it dropping? Okay, so the reason that's happening is because this glute medius, the opposite side, it's not engaging, it's not doing the work. So I'm having to work very hard. Watch, I'm gonna try it again and try to keep it level. So tell me if I look more level. But it's not all the way there, right? So a little more level, and that's because this is my bad side. So I'm really trying to make it better. So it's taking time. But you can kind of see the difference between how it should look versus how it shouldn't. And that, it's amazing how you'll find you don't even need any weight for quite a while, where when you have the right muscles working, all of a sudden the movement becomes like so much harder and you get a really good workout and you actually have the right muscles working. And then you also don't have as much pain or injury down the road, because now when you do other movements like kneeling down on the ground to grab something or whatever, and then you come back up, you're training yourself to use the right muscles when you do those things. So, because you can bet if your hip is dropping a lot in a movement like this, it's also doing that when you kneel on the ground or do other stuff, right? And it's just not a healthy movement pattern and will cause problems with, other stuff, so. Hi, I'm Rizal. I create home workouts for women like myself in their over 40s and almost 40s using only dumbbells and resistance bands. These are sane, calm workouts. If you'd like to work out with me, just go to inspirefulwomen.com. All right, let's just practice it a few more times. This is very good to learn to do this movement without weights first, because if you're using the right muscles, you'll actually find it's pretty challenging at the start. Torso in line with front leg. Take a step back or forward, adjust your toes. For the back leg, keep your upper body neutral here. You'll hinge forward at the hips a little bit. Your knee and hip bends to come down. Your bottom knee can touch the floor or not, it's okay, either way. And then as you come back up, fully extend the leg so you don't have a crease in the hip at the top. Okay, and I'll do it from the front.